What is up, lovely tech people? It is your friendly neighborhood IT girl, Sierra here, with another episode of basically Q&A, or what I'm calling the Ask and the Answer, because that is the book that I'm reading. But you guys had kind of a lot of similar questions about the job market, and I wanted to address those in a video so that you could all maybe get some, insight into the situation. So if you're into this, click like, stick around for a little bit, grab yourself a mug of something tasty, and let's dish. All right, so I guess the most important commonality here was that you guys were saying how you don't necessarily have connections or a network of tech people to help you get that first job, because it's really important. And I also was that. I did, full disclosure, my uncle does work in tech. However, it's something that we never talked about. Like, it's never come up in conversation. Literally, we just I've always just kind of known that he did something in tech. But when I was nearing the end of my degree, he did offer to put in a referral to his company so that, possibly I could work there. And he did. He followed through with that. I found a job that honestly I knew that I was not qualified for. It was for DevOps, and I was like, I don't think so, but let's just apply for it anyways because I know somebody. And so I did. And didn't hear back from them for 5 months. Like, legit, he put in, he followed through, sent his referral in with my application, did not hear back for 5 months. And when I did hear back, no. It was like literally it. Just like a no. No Zoom interview, no phone interview, nothing. So I was literally at ground zero also. That was my one in, and it didn't pan out. So that being the case, I've written down your questions so I can kind of ask them or answer them a little more cohesively. And so here's what we're going to cover. We're going to do, did my WGU skills help me get interviews, a job, whatever? What is a job process like after graduating? And were the certifications helpful? Very important. So let's start with, what skills did I get from WGU? So that we know whether or not they were actually beneficial. Skills that I got from WGU, obviously coding. Very important. Learning how to program and things like that. How to make the steps of making a full-blown application, front end and back end, work. Very important skill. I also learned how the application process works, how the interview process works. I learned about tech jobs in general by, just communicating with people in the tech industry at this point. I also, what else did I learn? Oh, I got projects for my portfolio. Hugely important. I got full-blown projects for my portfolio, and also I have started the master's program, which they actually go into a lot more detail about the interview and application process. They talk about your resume, your cover letter, and just general things like that. So you do go more in-depth actually within your program if you do the master's program. However, you can get all this information, like I said, through the Career Center or online, things like that. So, but from WGU, I utilized the Career Center a lot and learned a ton of stuff from them. Now, was that beneficial in helping me, navigate the job market? Absolutely. Because 90%, I would say, of where applicants fail is just in the application process. A lot of people don't understand how the actual application process works when you start applying for companies. Like, I'm talking Fortune 500, Fang Mang kind of companies. It's a whole different application process than it is just applying for regular jobs in other fields, typically speaking. And since my field that I had previously been in had literally like no measurable ways of kind of doing your applications, it was really kind of just HR people would look at it, they either liked it or they didn't, and that was it. The whole learning of how this process went changed the game. So highly recommend that you learn that process. Additionally, if you're interested, I do have a super student success guide coming out within the next month. So go to my website, sign up for that newsletter link, and you will know exactly when, and I'm going to cover like all this kind of stuff within that. So you don't have to bounce around trying to find this information. All right, so that being the case, I would say probably 8 out of 10 interviews. The things I applied for, I would say like 8 out of 10, I got something back. Either I got a test, like immediately it was just like, take this test, and if you pass the test, we'll move forward. Or I got an actual interview, in which case it was like a first step interview, and then you had to just introduce yourself. You have like a 30-minute sit down with somebody, or like a 30-minute Zoom conversation with somebody, and they decide from there what you're going to do next, if you're going to have a take-home test, a project, or whatever it's going to be. So I would say like 8 out of 10 times, because of how much I learned just for the application process, I got those interviews. Next, let's talk about the job process, the job market. I don't really know how to quantify this question specifically. So I'm going to just approach it as like, what was the job hunting process like once you graduated? And I will say it wasn't easy. You know, like I said, getting the interviews was a cinch. Like I did not want for interviews, but the actual process, because here's the thing, timing is everything. And I knew going into this process, when I just started to get my degree, which is in software development, not computer science, important point. I knew that because I was in the middle of the pandemic, I started at the very beginning of the pandemic. So I knew that timing was going to be a factor for me, because people eventually were going to catch on and want to be in this industry, and people were eventually going to, you know, be better than me. So it's like, here's my chance. If I get in early, I know that it's going to be a lot easier for me. So I started interviewing way before I should have, like way before I was ready, way before I knew how to CRUD or how backends worked or how to, you know, actually make a fully functional application. I knew what variables were. I knew what methods were and parameters, how to use that. I knew how to link my classes and stuff. But yeah, I didn't actually know how to do anything really of substantial value. So I started interviewing, but the process was so much easier at that point. Now I will say, I would venture to say 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have to do a HackerRank or LeetCode interview, especially if you're going for FinTech or FangMang. And I do find that to be slightly more problematic, because if you are in a software development program or any program that is not math heavy, which I purposely did because I don't like math, I will be very honest with you guys, I don't love it. But interviewers for software developers and computer engineers love math questions. They love data structures, algorithms questions. It is their favorite thing to do. You can pretty much guarantee that if you want to work for a Fortune 500 or higher company, you're gonna have to do some sort of test like this. And yeah, so this is my advice to you guys. Unless you can find a startup or some sort of very small boutique kind of company, go for computer science. It's just going to make your life a little bit easier, because you're going to learn all that stuff at the same time that you're learning other things. I had to take time outside of after I had done my classes, or a little bit in tandem, to learn data structures and algorithms like on my own, which based on, you know, I've told you guys a couple of things that I've used to do this, but it's still not fun. Like I didn't enjoy it. And so just if you want to make a little bit easier on yourself, and you're planning on becoming a computer engineer or a software developer at one of these like higher up companies, just learn the stuff right out. If you want to not, and just go kind of a slightly different path, you know, maybe follow the way that I did it, but typically speaking, just do it the other way. It'll save you a little bit of effort. All right, so that being the case, I also decided during this time I did not like that process. So because job, how do I explain this? What companies do, typically speaking, is that they're just trying to compare you on the very basic metrics of who you are as a person. It's just like, can you complete this task? And if you can, and sometimes it has nothing to do with the actual job that you will be doing, what does that tell us about you as a person? And basically what it tells them is that you're willing to be kind of cattle compared, is what I call it. It's just like, you know, you got a bunch of people and you just put them next to each other, and it's like, let's just compare them that way. And that being the case, let's just see who is slightly better than the other one. And I personally don't like that approach. I learned during this process that approach doesn't really work for me, and I'm not into it. I need something that's more individual based. I need to be at a company where they can see the potential in an individual and what that specific person could bring long term to the company. Because to me, it's kind of an arbitrary metric to just compare whether or not you can complete these tasks. A lot of people at this point in time can complete these tasks. Like I said, I kind of tried to get in there earlier so that, because I knew people were going to get to the point where they can do all these leak code and hacker rank questions. And it's like, well, once that happens, it's going to be extremely difficult to make a company want to look at you on an individual basis. So now it is like that. Like I said, it's very hard to make companies look at you as an individual. And one of the good things that WGU does do is when they make you complete all these tasks for your degree, you know, you have to build these specific applications. It's really kind of different than what most people have on their portfolio. So there is that part of it. And I will go as far as to say, though, the slight downside is that they're not really data structure heavy projects. They're functionally and realistically kind of good projects to have. But if you've ever watched that guy Clements, I forget what his name is. It's a very French name. It's a very fancy name. But he does that like algo expert and whatever. If you've looked at his portfolio or the things that he's shown from his first portfolio that he went through and that Google called him back for, it's literally a visualization of data structures and algorithms. And it's very impressive for somebody who wants to work at FANG or, you know, at a company that's very heavy with that kind of subject matter. So I highly recommend looking at his stuff if you want something that's going to be impressive to those types of people. However, make sure you change it. Like, don't just copy his thing. Like, you know, go through the tutorial with him, but then upgrade it, make it evolve, make it be better than what he did, so that it's unique to you and it's also something that will catch the eye of these people, because obviously he got in with that, so he's good and they already know what it is. So you have to change it up a little bit. But yeah, to circle back to the whole thing here, the job process and the market right now is literally just comparing you to the candidate next to you based on very basic things. And something to think about when you're going into this, because I think a lot of people are thirsty in the very beginning. They want that job, you know, they just want that tech job. They want to get in there. It doesn't really matter how or what. They just want to work for Fang Mang, and they just want to be part of it. And I get it. Like I was like that in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, I really want to work at Amazon, and I just want to be there because it looks so cool and everything. And it's like, yes, you know, it's a goal. However, I quickly realized that that is not the lifestyle that I want. I don't want to just be compared to somebody based on, you know, how many lines of code they completed this week versus how many you did and blah, blah, blah. It's just you gotta know what that actually entails. And a lot of people get into there, like they don't talk about this that much, but a lot of people get into these very prominent companies and then leave kind of very quickly because they realize they don't always respect what you bring as an individual. It's very much, especially with the entry-level developers, it's very much just kind of do as you're told. Don't really have too much autonomy. Just follow the herd. Make your lines of code, don't fall behind the rest of the pack. It's very much that sort of thing. And you know, that's fine. You should keep up. You should be able, you know, you should be able to be on the level of other employees. But for me, that's not the kind of priority that I want to have. I want to know that I'm doing something of value within the company. I want to know that I am not only being a benefit to them, but being beneficial to myself and creating a career, and not just like, oh, I worked for Fang, and it's like, you know, you just got the clout from that. But it's like, what other things can you bring to the table? I have a lot of things that I want to bring to the table. So when you're looking for jobs, don't be thirsty. Just know that you've got a skill that is crazy in demand and is very important, and you don't actually need these companies to make a living. You can do this on your own. Most people, the main problem I think that they have not going out on their own when you become a programmer is that you either don't have an idea that you want to work on, or you know, you want a steady paycheck. Obviously that's a good thing to have, but additionally it's easier to check out and just work on something that somebody's told you to work on, rather than be in charge of having to not only build an application or a company from the ground up, but then to also like maintain your own productivity. But regardless of whether or not you want to work on your own, know that you have the option. That is the thing. You have to know that your worth is more than someone comparing you against somebody else just directly like that, you know? So I really want to just impart that knowledge on you guys. I don't know how I got to this point, but there's that. Okay, so hopefully you can sift through that section that we just went through, because I'm honestly not even sure what I said there. But let's move on to whether or not my certifications were beneficial. And I will say absolutely, without a doubt, the certifications were so beneficial, because when you're new to an industry, you have very little to show for yourself. Even if you've got a portfolio, you still kind of got very little to show for yourself, because a lot of times they're not even going to look at your portfolio. They're going to look and see that you have a portfolio on your resume, or, you know, a link to the portfolio, because sometimes they just want the link, whatever. So they want to see that you have one, but they might not dive into the actual code that you use, because, you know, sometimes the code is really big, sometimes it's really small, whatever it is, but they don't want to have to look at it for each individual applicant if it's not important for them to do so. So they're probably not going to check it out, but they will look and see the certifications based on what certifications you have. Some are more useful and more prominent than others, and they will be able to tell, oh, obviously she got some competency in this area because she's got a certification. Aside from that, just in general, one of the huge things that companies do to subconsciously weed out applicants is obviously see whether or not they have degrees and certifications. And the reason that they ask for these kind of, I don't know, I call them like kind of baseline questions, is because it shows what your follow through is. It shows how ambitious you are, how much drive you have. If you get a degree, if you get a diploma or a degree in something, it shows that you can complete something. And then on top of that, if you have certifications, it just shows how much more likely you are to power through and complete a task. Because not only, like I said, do certifications show your competency in something, but they know, typically speaking, certifications ain't cheap. Like, they're kind of pricey, especially depending on the ones that you get. And if you're going to be doling out that kind of cash, they don't know if you got it free through school or however you got these certifications, but they know they cost money. So if you're going to be putting the investment into getting these certifications, they know that you're in, like, you're in it, and you have the idea that you're going to be doing something in this industry. So it's extremely important, and that subconsciously tells companies how likely you are to not jump ship, how likely you are to be willing to power through if you have a disagreement with the company, or how likely you are to not leave and jump to another company if your project falls through, or if, you know, something changes, if it sucks, if you decide that you don't like the project that you're working on, you're still more likely to complete it because you've gone through certifications and degree processes and things like that. So it really does show follow through. On top of that, depending on what your background is, whatever your resume has on there for your experience, it can show that you have, like, it can show links between how your brain works. So if you've got, I don't know, say you were in business before, but now you've got a cloud computing certification, it shows that you understand what a business would want in terms of hiring a company to build their cloud architecture, or, you know, like how a business is structured, so what pieces of the cloud architecture they're going to need to run this business. You know, like, you learn the stuff within the cloud architecture certification, but it really helps to know that you've got the insider knowledge on both sides. So certifications are extremely beneficial. And for me, aside from the portfolio and aside from the different things that I learned, like I said, I think learning the application just submission process, widely beneficial. But I think having the certifications on top of everything else really put my application at another level than a lot of other applicants, because when you see that everything kind of ties together, or at least, because like I said, my actual resume didn't tie together, but I got the projects, I got the degree, I got the certifications, like all those things tie together to show where you're at now, and where you're at now seems like somebody who should be in this industry. So if you make it look like everything works together and it just seems like you're a really good candidate because of all these things combined, all the powers combined, you are like 10 times more likely to just be able to get at least into the interview process. Then again, like I said, once you get past the interview process and they're deciding who they want to hire, most of the time they're going to directly compare you to the competitor. So just know that that's the case. And like I said, personally, I don't think you should be thirsty about it. You've got skills that can take you through any sort of like dry times if you utilize them correctly, and if you know how to go about getting clients for it. But yeah, that's what I would say the job process, like the interview process, like having the certifications, what WGU has benefited me with. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe if you're into this. And I don't know, I think those are all the kind of similar questions that we have for today. So I will talk to you next time. Bye.